My name is Ryan Mikisa and I'm the Response Innovation Lab Coordinator in Uganda. The Response Innovation Lab focuses on supporting innovations and learning for populations that are affected by crisis. The Response Innovation Lab, in partnership with Uridu, is working on a project called Open Source for Equality, commonly known as OSEC. OSEC aims at promoting the use and development of open software that's contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals with a focus on health, education, and equality. The OSEC initiative seeks to bring together development and humanitarian organizations, social enterprises, software developers, and content creators to support local ecosystems where open software thrives and creates digital public goods. In this video, we get to hear the experience of how 5 organizations are using open source for their benefit.
Hi, I'm Alan Mbabani, serving as the ED for OpenStreetMap Uganda, a local registered NGO with the mandate of building a community of mappers. And the main goal of these maps is to help us be able to make decisions in our communities, to support in solving the community challenges.
Uridu is a German non-profit organization and we focus on SDG 5 gender equality. To achieve that, we need to empower women. Unfortunately, 500 million women worldwide cannot read or write. That is why we are developing open contents and open technologies to make vital knowledge and practical information accessible to all women using digital audio.
Simbi Foundation is a research-led non-profit organization working towards enhancing access to quality education in remote and refugee communities. Through our Brightbox technology solutions, we aim to impact the next 3.5 million learners in remote and refugee communities. We believe that access to quality education, which is also the SDG 4, is a key disruptor in the poverty circle.
Ustad Mobile is an open source app that enables users to teach, learn, and share online or offline. It was built from the beginning to work seamlessly offline in limited connectivity environments, and it has features like an offline sync and peer-to-peer sharing.
METS is a 5-year collaboration with Ministry of Health, HISP, UCSF with funding from CDC. We contribute to the strategic goal of improving health through availing strategic information straight from where it's captured to the level where it's analyzed towards decision making.
We are using open innovation both on the content side and on the technology side. We've established and developed a project that we call Audiopedia, which is a repository for open audio contents about nutrition, health, childcare, and much more. To make those accessible, we have been developing open technologies, open software over the last years, which we are now open sourcing in our initiative Open Source for Equality.
We are able to promote and access to equipment such as computers to remote vulnerable communities that don't have access to these computers. And with this, we train them how to create maps, leveraging ICT skills so that they be able to learn how to create the maps. And with creating maps, we use software such as QGIS, which is an open source software. And also creating this data, we use OpenStreetMap, which helps us to create open data.
Based on an open source software called Rachel by worldimpossible.org, we built our digital library called Simbi Learn Cloud. Simbi Learn Cloud is an offline digital library containing over 250 gigabytes of relevant learning materials curated from recognized platforms like Khan Academy, Wikipedia for Schools, and Uganda NCDC, among others. Simbi Learn Cloud uses open resources offered by open platforms to provide access to various relevant learning materials to learners in our partner communities.
Our whole platform is both open source itself for users, and it is built on various open source libraries. It makes our software more accessible to a wider audience. The fact that it's open source means government and large organizations can have the confidence that they can make changes, localize, and scale no matter what, without legal or cost barriers?
We use open source here at METS through a system which developed called Uganda EMR. Uganda EMR currently is implemented on OpenMRS, which is a open source system. So we build on top of that and customize it specifically for the Ugandan context as a distribution of OpenMRS.
Why do we choose to use open source? It's because of the limited resources that we are able to acquire within our communities and be able to come up with the solutions. So when you look at some of these softwares, some of the data, we don't have to pay a lot of money to help us acquire this. That is the reason why we use that. Some of the challenges that we face are still limited knowledge on how to use some of these open source tools, and also creating this data, being that we're leveraging on a community, having resources to be able to train them so that they're able to support us in creating this data. It's a bit limited, but with the goal, we look forward to seeing that open source helps us to be able to cover a wider community and be able to create more open source data.
We chose open source mainly for two reasons. A, for its scalability, and B, for the decentralized aspect of it. As a platform-oriented organization, we have great examples of how open source can help platforms scale. Take, for example, Wikipedia. And we also believe that digital tools in development cooperation should be developed locally with a human-centered approach. And this is exactly what open source provides. We can create together the tools in order to empower local stakeholders to develop the right product for their target groups.
Using open source codes has enabled us to offer high quality resources while keeping costs low. Our partner communities have little to no access to educational resources, so offering high quality and pre-vetted resources becomes a key priority. Providing access to open source and open resources for learners opens the door for extending learning across multiple disciplines.
So we think that being open source gives us a competitive advantage in the eyes of important clients compared to proprietary alternatives.
We decided to use open source as METS because it is easy to customize, and also it has a great community. OpenMRS has a great community where you have a number of contributors around the world who can easily solve your problems in case you have challenges, and also the fact that you can easily find developers within the community in case you need a resource to help you do a certain project.
Resources like Octoverse have reported that Africa's contribution to open source world over is at 1%. Unfortunately, the women contributions are also still very few. Yet, with open source, we can encourage innovation through collaboration to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope the stories that have been shared here have inspired us to take the necessary steps to increase our use and contribution to open source.